The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Good morning, Tampa. I hope it's as beautiful in Tampa today as it is here in Southeast Florida. Hey, good morning. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Our expert this morning has been with us for several years now. She always is the last Monday of the month, which makes it really easy to keep up with her. And today is kind of I haven't even told her this yet, but I thought about her this week. And the reason why is I've had several friends pass away that were young. When I say young, they were in their 50s. And the furthest thing from anyone's mind is them passing away. They weren't even sick. That was what was so strange. And what leads me up to this is you never know when your last day on earth is. And you have got to make plans. And there's no better way than attorney Debbie Baker. Good morning, attorney.
Oh my gosh, it's formal this month. Good morning, Steve.
I didn't mean to start the show off.
I'm teasing. I'm teasing. Well, that's quite an intro about your friends.
Yeah, I thought about you this past week because, you know, we all think we're indispensable. I mean, nothing's ever going to happen to us. But when you're in your 50s, you really don't think anything is going to happen health-wise.
No.
And you end up, I don't know if they had any kind of estate planning or not, but I think, and I'm not going to get political, but I have my reasons why I think that they are no longer with us. But I'm trying to make the point not to wait. Pick up that phone, call attorney Baker, go sit down with her and make sure that not only that you've done estate planning, but it's been done right. Would you not agree, Debbie?
Well, I agree that it needs to be done and done right. Whether they have to sit down with me or not is, that would be really interesting. But anyway, I definitely agree that it's easy to think we're invulnerable. It's easy to think it'll never happen to us, whatever that means. Car accidents, motorcycle accidents. It just never occurs. Whether we're at the cause of it or we're at the effect of it, it generally doesn't call. I had a call this morning from somebody who I don't know how old she is, but she's having brain surgery in 2.5 weeks. And it occurred to her that maybe she needs to put something in place, just for now, so people can take care of her now. And then, heaven forbid, God forbid, that she doesn't come out of the brain surgery, or she doesn't come out of it well. And I really do appreciate it. It's hard for people to get their minds around that it might happen to them. And it's really easy to avoid until they run into a situation like you just described with you, Steve. Now, you told me months ago that you and Sophia have everything in place. But the kind of thing is that this is that situation that you just had is also the kind of thing that wakes people up and say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened to Joe." I just saw him yesterday,
Right.
and he ran a marathon last month, and now he's not here. Maybe it's time to put things on paper. So, yeah, yep. And we've talked about this before too. I had somebody I met recently who's got older older children, meaning teenagers over the age of 18. And I said, your teenager needs something. And, why? I said, well, now that they're 18, you can't do anything for them anymore. And that doesn't drive fathers nearly as crazy as it drives mothers that, stereotypically can't do anything. So, yeah, that's really sad. And years ago, I heard a guy talk about life insurance, and I still don't understand life insurance. But I remember him telling the story of he'd been at he was a top producer in the industry, and he'd been at a conference, and somebody talked about the fact that they had been a board member somewhere and had felt out of discomfort not to ask everybody on the board if they had their life insurance in place. And then one of their members died, leaving two young children, and the board raised enough to pay for a funeral, but there was nobody delivering a check. And he never left anywhere ever again without asking people if they were covered. And I've taken that. I ask everybody, do you have a plan? And some people say yes, some people say no. The people who say no, I said, listen, it doesn't matter if you work with me. It matters that you work with somebody and get it done, because you leave your family in a horrible situation, which you would not choose to leave them in. It's hard enough to grieve, but don't make it harder by not having directions.
We had
I hope all your friends had it in place.
Yeah, I think about, and we've talked about this, as wealthy as Prince was, and he had all these advisors around him, didn't even have a simple will.
Well, people do think, my estate can handle it. There are people with probably substantial means who think, well, my estate can pay for it, which is true. But it's the emotional grief of the paying. Even if, recently I've had 2 or 3 people say, I have a will and everything goes to my child. I went, okay, everything goes to your child. But if it's just that, all you have in your will is my child gets all my money and my child gets my home, that child is going to have to go to court to get the right to have it. Well, he's my only child. I said, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that it's not like it's not a simple handoff. It's not a simple handoff to your child. Yes. And there are things you can do, which makes it a reasonably simple handoff. But without doing those things, it becomes complicated. And I met a couple last week who were witnesses for a friend of mine, and they have things in place. And I said, well, what's with your house? Well, our son will get the house when we die. I said, well, again, not easily. And they said, well, when we did our original documents, why don't people tell us those things? I said, I have no answer for that. I really have no answer for that.
Right.
I've met people who financial planners did not say they had to name beneficiaries or have allowed them to name minor children as beneficiaries. I can't answer those questions. I don't know. But actually, in fairness to the professionals involved, you and I, Steve, have both had numerous occasions where people have told us things and we either can't hear them or we won't hear them. And then all of a sudden, when it becomes relevant, it's like, why didn't you tell me? And right. I know this has happened countless times with my husband. I'll say, Steve just told me this, and I'm probably pretty certain you've told me that a dozen times over the last year. And he's finally learned to say, I'm just glad you finally heard it. So maybe these people do tell them, but they don't have another answer. And so in fairness to the professionals, but let's see, on October 5th, I will have had my license for 8 years. And when I tell people, I said, I didn't know this stuff 8 years ago. There's no reason you should know it at all. But you need to talk to somebody about getting it done. Will you stay? Well, yeah, it's important.
Listen, I want to talk about goals And, like, where am I going to live? Who's going to take care of me?
Right.
How am I going to pay for it? Let's talk about those, Debbie.
Okay. So the thing, the thing I learned more and more is the documents that people need now. Like Steve, you were talking before. Excuse me, my cat's shedding in my nose here. Um, uh, um, you were talking earlier about somebody having to go to a hospital to get a test. Okay. So the thing that happens is, again, going back to vulnerability or invulnerability, we don't think about stuff happening which leaves us incapacitated. And it's really important to think about, like, what happens if I get incapacitated? Where am I going to live? What were the other two questions? Where am I going to live?
Who's going to pay for it?
Who's going to pay for it? Okay. And I've started talking, certainly with my older clients. I mean, older, I mean in their 70s, maybe 80s, and ones who aren't well, regardless of their age. People have current powers of attorney, but the powers of attorney don't allow for somebody to do applications for government benefits. So the person I signed last week had a power of attorney, but it didn't allow for that. And if for some strange reason she needed to be in a nursing home, Medicare, which doesn't apply to people under 65, unless they're disabled, doesn't pay for nursing home care. So it's
wow.
And people understandably think it does. I mean, it's they think Medicare covers everything, but it doesn't. So where will I live is a really important question to ask. Not one for somebody in their 20s. I mean, they could ask it if they weren't already disabled. Why would they? But as people get older, it's something to consider. And who'll pay for it is another thing. I mean, what I've learned recently in terms of looking at some elder law planning is being prepared to apply for Medicaid for government benefits is not about taking a handout. It's about preserving your assets. So let's say that, with you and Sophia, something happened where, you needed some kind of extraordinary care. You own your home together. Let's just say you need to protect Sophia. I mean, her resources need to protect it. You don't want her to have to go broke so you can get government benefits. So part of the whole idea is, how do you take advantage of what the government has available legally, ethically, morally? And so if you need even care for a short while, you know that she's going to be okay. She hasn't had to spend down your last dollar, I mean, your combined last dollar to get benefits. So that's kind of where will I live, who will pay for it. And people, back to people who have lots of resources who don't do planning because they know their estate can pay for it. Certainly there are a lot of people who wouldn't ever need those benefits. But for the most part, we're talking about not people in quite the position Prince was in, but people who have sufficient assets where they'll be able to do it. They'll be able to pay for private care or whatever. It's a really, really important subject. And as I've moved along in this legal practice, I've become more aware of it's an uncomfortable conversation and people need to have it. Yeah.
Yes. I have Medicare, Debbie, but I cannot tell you what is the difference in Medicare and Medicaid.
Okay. So Medicare is something you get when you're 65, or you get if you've been collecting Social Security disability for 2 years, you will, regardless of your age, you'll get Medicare. So that's health care coverage. Okay, that's health care coverage. Okay. Medicaid is asset and income based. So there's no means testing for Medicare. You don't have to have a certain income or above a certain income to qualify for Medicare. To get Medicaid, you're within a constrained asset amount and income amount. So in nationally, the individual income amount right now for Medicaid is $2,742. It gets adjusted every year. That's income. So people have to look at if you're getting required minimum distributions, if you're getting a pension, if you're, and you're earning more than that, then you have to get under that to qualify for Medicaid. Assets, you can't have more than $2,000 in assets. Well, lots of people keep more than $2,000 in a checking account. So it's a very different. You don't have to plan for Medicare. You're going to get Medicare. So if you reach age 65, you're going to get it. If you need Medicaid, so government supports what you already have to get benefits, nursing home, skilled nursing home, long-term care, then that becomes a very different conversation. So there's a big difference between the two. Big difference between the two. And because again, if you get to be 65, you're 65 in. You get your Medicare. Medicaid, not so much.
Do you pay for Medicaid?
Well, your taxes pay for Medicaid, certainly, but not no. It's not like if you get you get your Social Security distribution and it shows that this as much has been taken out for your Part A, Part B, or whatever. Nothing like that. Medicaid certainly is supported by tax revenue, but it's not. You have no direct more. There's no more direct payment by you into that system, and it differs by state. It's income. I think the asset is 50 states, but the income is different per state. So, Florida has chosen in certain situations not to expand Medicaid. Other states have chosen to expand Medicaid, like for access to children. There are a lot of children who get Medicaid because their parents don't earn enough and they need medical care.
Debbie, I always have wanted to, and we still have we have
Yes.
over 5 minutes, but I still always at the end of the show want to really give you kudos. And it's always because I get so interested in how you explain everything. But I'm going to do this today, so I make sure I do this. My Sophia always tells me that she wished she would have become an attorney. And, it's so late in life now that she'll never fulfill that wish. But you did that.
You haven't had her call me. Yeah, I did that. Yeah.
You did that, Debbie. And and you're not, she's much older than you are, but I'm just saying, you decided somewhat in midlife to become an attorney, and you did it.
I did.
Do you ever pinch yourself?
No, because I've said this before. See, I think if it hadn't been a walk of faith, I'd probably pinch myself all the time. But it was God said go to law school. So and then once I figured out that it could happen, I just did it. But I always think it's interesting for people to say they're too old or it's too late or whatever.
I wish I would have.
And I wish I would have and people said that to me. I said, well, just go. Well, stop. Don't make excuses. I mean, if you want to go, go. If you don't want to go, don't go. But don't make excuses. And recently somebody posted on Facebook, what did you always want to do? What did you want to do when you were younger? And I said, well, I always wanted to be a doctor. Always wanted to be a doctor. And I got to be a doctor almost 50 years to the day after I graduated from high school. Wasn't a medical doctor, but it was a doctor of law. And I had not realized that until shortly before I graduated. And I still get moved by that because that was my dream always, to be a doctor. But when people say, and you can tell Sophia, I've had 3 people complete their undergraduate, they're either AAs or their BAs or a law degree using me as an inspiration, which was not what I had set out to do. And it's so humbling to know that that's the case. So, if anybody who's watching, listening, I mean, if you have something that you want to do, you need to find if it's not, it's not a walk of faith, but it's something you want, find the people around you who will support you to do it. And you need people around you, not who are going to like not say, are you sure? Or not say, do you really? But they're not going to ask you to defend yourself. They're going to be there to stand with you as you pursue the dream. And the people who don't want to do that, so going to law school, two of my brothers were like just enthralled and tickled. And my older brother said, well, why don't you just be a paralegal? And I went, well, that wasn't what I heard. And I don't take orders well. So paralegal wasn't going to work for me. He said, but your age, I said, like, my age is like, that has nothing to do with, what does that have to do with it? Well, what about the money? What has nothing to do with it? Has to do with, this is the path I'm on. And if you're not going to support me, then go away for 4 years. I mean, it's okay. I understand you love me, but you're not helping here.
Right. And Debbie, let me go one more step even further. Not only did you become an attorney, but of all areas of law to practice, you went into an area of law that you really, truly have to really care for other people. Because there's a lot of emotion that's involved in estate planning.
Yeah, there is.
So it shows where your heart is. That of all areas, I mean, the easiest would have probably been family law. You could have started making money right away. But you went into estate planning, which I know a lot of estate planning attorneys from Ask the Experts. You really, really have to care about people. And it's so obvious that you do.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a real gift. God knew what he was doing.
Always.
He knew it. He knew what he was doing. He hasn't told me he made a mistake. And every time I talk somebody out of needing me, because there's a way to do what they want to do without needing a lawyer, or I can direct them to, if it's not me, I can direct them. I've always been driven to be of service. There's nothing more that gives me greater pleasure than to be of service. So this woman who called me this morning, who's going to have, she says, well, we need to talk about fees and we need to talk about time. I said, well, my fees are exorbitant and it'll take endless time. And then I laughed. I said, here's the thing. We'll make it work. We will get it done before October 13th. Not to worry. We'll have it done and you'll be fine. And, I've done several like that, which are even a faster turnaround than that. Because if I can give you peace of mind going into the hospital, Steve, or a friend of yours, so that your loved ones have peace of mind, there's just no greater joy. There's no greater joy.
Well, we have run out of time. For those of you who are listening on radio, Debbie, give everybody your phone number and how they can reach you.
Sure. I'm in Tampa at 813-586-1332. I'm licensed in the state of Florida. But if you have somebody who has a question, there's general knowledge I can provide, and I'm always glad to have a conversation. Always.
Well, as always, I love talking to you. Debbie will be back with us again the last Monday of the month in October. God bless you.
Too, kiddo.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah, my pleasure. Have a great day.
You too. And that's attorney Debbie Baker, our estate planning attorney. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we have two incredible attorneys. I cannot wait to talk about personal injury law. We'll be right back.
And we are back with the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV with your hosts, Steve-O, Sophia, and their expert guests.
And we are back. Today, I just read that Florida is going to be under another weather situation. It's that time of the year. But you know what? Life goes on, and we'll keep everybody in prayer. Our next experts, who this is a subject, a law subject that everybody, God forbid, has to go through once in life. And it's either an automobile accident or it could be a slip and fall in a store. But there's so many people who don't know what to do and don't know their rights. And we had so many of you contact us wanting us to get a personal injury attorney. There's a lot of personal injury attorneys out there, but there's not a lot of great personal injury attorneys out there. Let me welcome you to two attorneys. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you? Hey, listen, I had some problems this morning. We've opened up in a couple new cities, and sometimes it's more than one person can handle, but we're here. The name of your law firm is Zervis and Culta. And I got to tell you, after our first show, I learned so much about auto accidents and slip and falls. And I want to continue with that today. But before we get started, tell everybody about your background and your law firm.
Well, I'm Angela Zervos, and one of the partners with Lauren and Zervos and Calta. We're licensed. Both of us are licensed in the entire state of Florida, so we can handle a case anywhere. But we personally handle, anything from car accidents, bike accidents, pedestrians, motor slip and falls or trip and falls, like we talked about, medical malpractice. Anything that involves, an injury, even a wrongful death. Unfortunately, we see those as well. And we're both trial attorneys. So, if a case deserves to go to trial, that's one of the things that I think separates us from the majority of attorneys who label themselves as personal injury attorneys. We'll actually go the extra mile and go to trial and let a jury decide instead of the insurance company decide what the client's case is worth.
So you're good litigators too.
It's a lot of work.
Yes.
A lot of work.
And I just want to say something, Lauren, before, is there's a lot of attorneys that no longer practice medical malpractice. And you just said that you do.
No, we do practice medical malpractice cases. They're just extremely expensive and difficult. They take a long time to get to the final stages, and the burden of proof, it's very difficult to successfully prove that a doctor acted outside the acceptable standard of care. Before you can get to court, you need an affidavit from an expert in a like field. So if it was a general surgeon or orthopedic or an obstetrician, you would need an expert in that particular field to say that what this doctor did was wrong and below the acceptable standards of care.
Tell us also about your background, Lauren.
Licensed throughout the state of Florida, also licensed in New York, former prosecutor from Brooklyn, New York, came to Florida and have been doing personal injury work ever since 1995. And I was lucky enough to meet up with Angela in 2014, and we opened up our own firm in 2017, and I couldn't be any prouder.
Wow, nice partner. I want to start off today because, sometimes we've taken for granted that people know that if they get injured, how an attorney charges, but a lot of people don't. And I want to start off with that today because for the life of me, I cannot understand why someone would not hire an attorney when they're in an auto accident or a slip and fall or whatever. Tell people how you charge or how you don't charge.
I'll take that one. We all personal injury attorneys in the state of Florida are governed by the Florida Bar Rules and the Florida Supreme Court guidelines. And those guidelines basically say we're the only area of law that cannot charge by the hour for a personal injury case, that we must charge a contingency fee, which means we get paid if the client gets paid. So it's a contingent process. So a lot of people that don't know that think, well, I can't afford to go into an attorney's office. I can't afford to pay for one. How am I going to deal with this? Our consultations are free. We're happy to go to someone's home or the hospital if they need to. We're happy to help get people to our office if they can't. And we'll sit down and we'll talk to them if need be for 2 hours, and it's free. And we tell them about, the process, and we tell them how we get paid. So getting back to the actual fees, it's a sort of a sliding scale, the percentage. So it's typically 33 1/3% if the case does not go into litigation. Once the case goes into litigation, and that doesn't happen all the time, a lot of cases will settle. But if it goes into the litigation process, meaning there's a court case, then the fee goes to 40%, and that's contingent as well. And Lauren and I made a decision a long time ago that any monies that we spend in terms of the costs of litigating, so whatever comes out of the firm's pocket to litigate the case, would be a cost that if we didn't prevail on the case, that we would eat those costs. So it's usually no cost to the client.
I got to tell people, we're here in, I guess, considered Central Florida. I'm in Southeast Florida. There is a large firm down here that I laugh every time I see their commercial. They act like they're doing you a favor by handling your case on a contingency basis, when that's how the state says you have to charge. They're not doing anything any different than any other attorney does.
That doesn't set them apart. You're right, Steve.
You're right. I mean,
it's just they count on the general public not knowing the difference, so they think they're getting a bargain, but it's the law.
Yes. They're not offering anything else. Since you started with us and we've gave them your phone number, we've been getting calls that people are, I don't know if it's a scam that's going on, but they're doing a lot of advertising that they can get you more money than any other law firm in the country. And they're even showing checks. I don't know if you've seen these or not. I've seen them on Facebook and on Twitter. And I don't think that's the way to go about hiring an attorney, is it?
I would have to say no. I would have to say no. There's a lot of different factors that go into the recovery of a case. If you're looking for an attorney, you want to look at the experience the attorney has, whether or not they step foot in the courtroom. Are they willing to litigate your case? Do they send the case out? How long have they been doing personal injury? If you're doing it correctly, personal injury is more than just hanging out a shingle and saying, you're in an accident, call me. There's a lot of work that goes involved. Angela and I read every single medical record that comes in on every single one of our clients. It's not handed off to a paralegal or a legal assistant. And it's because we do that we know what they're complaining of. We know how they're suffering, and we're able to better present it to the insurance companies.
Yeah, the insurance company is not your friend, are they?
They definitely are not your friend. I mean, they definitely have no, I'll give you an example. Recently in Florida, in March of this year, Florida legislature decided to engage in a massive overhaul in tort reform, meaning they wanted to just redo personal injury. And they did it in such a way, and it passed so quickly that it was pretty much mind-blowing for anybody who practices personal injury. So they have afforded, the new laws have afforded so much more protections to the insurance companies as of March 24th. The governor signed the new law within 24 hours of the vote in the legislature. And he didn't even wait to make it, go into effect in July. He basically said, up, new law right now, because he's so pro insurance company. And now we have this situation where a lot of the lawyers have not read the new bill in detail. And one of the big factors, or the motivation for the legislature passing the new law, was that, we're going to be able to reduce your insurance premiums now. Insurance premiums have gone through the roof because of all these lawsuits and all of these injury claims. And in fact, the exact opposite happened. We've seen, I can't even tell you how many of our clients call and say, my premiums went up. It was the exact opposite. So now they're going to, have more ammunition to battle truly injured victims, and they're raising the premiums. So, it's my opinion, and I don't know, perhaps speak for Lauren, but it's our opinion, I think, that was just a farce, because nothing's changed. The premiums did not go down, and they went up, in fact. So
Surprise.
It was a devastating blow to personal injury in the state of Florida. And I will tell you that I think that in the coming year, when the newer cases are brought to some sort of a resolution, whether it's in trial or not, you're going to see a lot of personal injury attorneys that aren't going to make it, because,
wow.
Well, and I say that because the new law makes it such that there's so many new loopholes that we have to jump through on behalf of our clients, and so many hurdles that we have to overcome, that we're going to have to just take a lot more cases actually in front of a jury. And so I think that the 90% or so that don't go to trial are going to find themselves, being bullied by the insurance companies with minimal offers. And because they're not going to know how to try a case, they're not going to make it.
Why didn't I'm not trying to get political, but why didn't as big as the trial attorneys are, why didn't they try to fight this?
Oh, we did. We did.
Okay.
I can't tell you the hundreds of thousands of dollars that went into trying to fight it. The number of attorneys and their clients, their injured clients, that went up to the steps and spoke before the legislature, trying to convince them not to do this. But, there's an old saying, Steve, money talks, right?
Yeah. What we're trying to accomplish here, there's people who've never been in an auto accident, and they get in an accident for the first time, and they don't know what to do. And by having a firm like yours, levels the playing field, because these insurance companies have a lot of money behind them, and their job is to pay out the least amount of money. And I got to tell you, and I just know from experience, not to try to handle this yourself. I mean, you can come in and make an appointment with your firm. You don't have to write a check, and you're going to be able to tell them if they really do have a case or not. You've been doing this. I like your firm because you mainly do personal injury only. And I love that about your firm. And we talked about this last show, but you want to make the field level, though.
I always think that it's best for anybody who gets into an accident and they're unfamiliar with the process, that they reach out to an attorney, because most of us, if not all of us, will offer a free consultation. And so there's no harm in coming and sitting down or doing a phone conference, or even now, with the Zoom that we've got, where you could do it from your home. You sit down, you talk to us, let us tell you what your rights are so that you know what you're not giving up. Let us tell you what you can and cannot pursue a claim for. And Lauren and I, being very family oriented people, both grandmothers, Yeah, family comes first with us. We have been in many a situation where we've had a prospective client come to us with catastrophic injuries. I mean, just huge. And unfortunately, because Florida doesn't make liability coverage mandatory, you don't have to have it in Florida. Some people are not able to pursue anything, even with catastrophic injuries. But, you know, there have been so many times that Lauren and I have met with people and we've signed them up and we found out that there's minimal insurance coverage, a $10,000 policy or a $20,000 policy. And our client is so severely injured that our conscience won't even let us take a fee. We'll just help them. It will help them get the process going. We'll help them settle the case and give them all of the money. Right. You know, I mean, those situations happen. And I think that I know personally that I'm proud that Lauren and I do that, because I think that's how we would want to be treated in a situation like that. There's no reason for a catastrophic injury case to come into the office doors and we settle it with a phone call and take a third of that. We don't do that. We can't live like that. We can't do business like that. And that's something that we're very proud of. But getting back to it, there's no harm. There's no downside. There's only a plus side to meeting with an attorney or talking to them on the phone. You know, obviously somebody with the experience and somebody that's willing to talk to you, you know, and spend that time no matter how long it is. And Lauren and I, that's what we do.
The only thing I would caution, Steve, is when people call an attorney for a free consult, make sure they're speaking with an attorney, not a case manager, not an investigator, not a legal assistant. There's a reason why those people aren't lawyers. They don't know the law like a lawyer should know the law. So insist on speaking with a lawyer. You call in, you tell our assistant a little bit what it's about, even if it's not necessarily something that we're going to be able to help you with. Angela and I get on the phone and we'll walk you through why we will, why we won't, what we think you may be able to do, what you shouldn't do. So that's my only caution to people out there is make sure you speak to an attorney.
I bet you I've had at least 25, and I wasn't even in an auto accident. I don't know even how they got my number. Intake, that's the best word I hear. I'm with intake of so-and-so law firm. It's like, what is intake? But I love the fact that you two speak to them yourself and not a clerk. I'm not putting clerks down, but you really go the extra mile though. I've never, if I was in an accident, I've never used a chiropractor before. Or when you're a doctor who specializes in auto accidents, do you help with that?
Well, there's really no doctor that should specialize in auto accidents. If you're having, pain in the spinal areas, a chiropractor is a consideration. An orthopedic is a consideration. Physical therapy is a consideration, all depending on what the complaints are. Certainly, we have worked with clients that have treated with doctors all throughout the state, and we will share our experiences that the clients have had with those physicians if asked. Absolutely.
So you might give 2 or 3 different physical therapists for them to choose from, because I wouldn't even know who to contact.
Well, we don't necessarily refer people to certain physicians. We let them decide, what kind of doctor they want to see. Some people don't want a chiropractor. Some people want a real, like a medical doctor. Some people choose to go through their primary care doctor and then get a referral to physical therapy, perhaps an MRI. It all depends on, how hurt they are at the time. But that's not something that Lauren and I are typically do, is refer people to a specific doctor, because I think that the client should actually find the doctor that they feel comfortable with. Now, going back to what you said a few minutes ago, doctors that specialize, I will tell you, there are a lot of doctors that say they will not see a patient that has was in a car accident or had a slip and fall. Even people's own primary care doctors turn them down all the time, and they say, we don't do personal injury. It's kind of mind-blowing because they took an oath, a Hippocratic oath that to do no harm. And if that's your primary care and you have an HMO insurance, you have to go through your primary care to get referred out for something, but they can't even get through the door. And the reason so many doctors don't want to do personal injuries because they think that, they're going to get called into court. Right. They're going to have their depositions taken. They don't want to deal with any of that. So, we do sometimes find that our clients have difficulty finding a doctor that is willing to treat with them. And we do have lists of doctors' names, that we know do personal injury, and we just let the client decide where they want to go.
I read one of the scariest articles the other day that I don't even know if this could be true. 50% of people in Miami do not have auto insurance.
That's a big number.
50%? I mean, do you think that could be really true?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, which is why we tell everybody that walks through our doors, buy uninsured motorist coverage. Because if you're in an accident and somebody else is at fault and they don't have liability insurance, uninsured motorist coverage steps in the shoes of the person that hit you, and you're able to pursue your insurance company for compensation, just as if it was the person that hit you.
Do you see it? Do you see a lot of that?
Yes.
Steve, we see it probably every week. Nobody wants to have an expensive insurance policy. Nobody wants that, but they have no idea how important it is to have a good insurance policy, auto insurance, because it protects everyone in your entire household. But, people think, I won't get into an accident, or my insurance agent said I don't need uninsured motorists. That's true. You don't need that. But we're telling you that it would be a monumental mistake not to have it, because there are too many people in Florida who don't have bodily injury liability. Florida is one of 6 states throughout the entire country that doesn't require liability coverage. We live in a place where it's incredibly dangerous to drive. I mean, let's not forget about the fact that all the people that are coming down here now to live. So the roads are dangerous, and you've got no requirement for the type of insurance coverage that would protect us. So it is imperative that you invest in uninsured motorists. We can't encourage that enough to people.
I stopped riding my motorcycle because here in Florida, it's very dangerous. We have an older demographic, and sometimes they don't see you. And I can't tell you, I never had a problem until I moved to Florida. Roads get very dangerous here. What is the first thing that people should do? We only have a few minutes, but what is the first thing that people should do if they're in an automobile accident?
First, assess that everyone's okay. And if not, get proper medical care immediately. But you definitely want to exchange information. You want to take photographs, if you can, with your phone of the property damage, of the positioning of the cars, especially if there's going to come down to an issue of liability, who's at fault. You want to get witness names. If there's anybody who stopped, who said, I saw what happened, you weren't at fault, you want to get their name and number. Call the police so that you can document what happened and have an actual report. And then before you do anything with any insurance companies, we always recommend call the attorney. It's a free consult.
Right. We've been running, for the people who are watching TV, we've been running your phone number. For those listening on radio, give everybody how they can reach your office. We've got about a minute left.
Sir, we are in our main office is in Tarpon Springs. We have an office also in Spring Hill, St. Pete, and Clearwater, where we can meet with clients. And we can be reached at 727-937-3171.
I am so glad we've got you both, and you'll be back with us again next month for several shows. Everybody, thank you again. Great answers. And we'll see you all again next week with more Ask
Yes.
the Experts. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you, Steve. Have a good week.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.